The making of a legend. The name Electra no longer belonged to a mere girl. It had transformed into something more, a force, a whisper of defiance that slipped through the cracks of Rome's towering walls. The streets buzzed with murmurs of her victories. The marketplace filled with gamblers eager to place bets on the next fight. But in the dark corners of the city, behind closed doors and in hushed voices, another name was spoken. The Beast of Leon, a monster, a warrior, a girl who should have died but refused. The rise of the beast. The arena had become her domain. Bloodied sand and the cries of fallen men were her reality. Every time she stepped into the pit, she fought as if death itself had no claim over her. And perhaps in some way it didn't. You have the eyes of someone who's already died once. Cassius remarked one evening, leaning against the stone wall of the Gladiator quarters. Electra smirked, running a whetstone along the edge of her sword. Maybe I have. He studied her, his own blade resting at his side. You don't fight like the others. They fight to survive. You fight for something else. She looked up then, locking eyes with him. Survival is not enough. Cassius nodded, as if he'd expected that answer. Then what is? She did not reply. Not because she didn't know, but because to speak it aloud would be to make it real. Revenge was no longer just a desire, it was a promise, and she intended to keep it. The rebellion within. The first time she heard of the rebellion, it was little more than a whisper carried by the wind. A few gladiators, angry and desperate, dreaming of something beyond the chains. Fools, Remus, the thief-turned-fighter, scoffed. What do they think they'll do? Overthrow the empire with swords made from scraps? But Electra did not dismiss them so easily. Every fire starts with a spark, she mused, staring into the flames of the campfire that lit their dim quarters. Lyra, ever watchful, tilted her head. And do you intend to be that spark? Electra met her gaze, her expression unreadable. I intend to burn it all down. The rebellion did not seek her out, she sought them. In the dead of night, she found their meeting place, hidden deep within the labyrinth of underground tunnels beneath the Colosseum. A dozen warriors, hardened by years of suffering, turned to face her as she entered. You shouldn't be here, one of them growled. Electra smirked. Neither should you. A burly man with a jagged scar across his cheek stepped forward. What do you want, Beast of Leon? She tilted her head. A way out. The air in the room shifted. Hope was dangerous. It had gotten men killed before. You think we can just walk out of here? The scarred man scoffed. No, Electra admitted. But we can fight our way out. A pause. A flicker of something in their eyes. Then a voice from the back, hesitant yet firm. And then what? Electra let the words hang in the air before answering. Then we take back everything they stole from us. The rebellion had begun. A king's mistake. News of Electra's growing influence did not go unnoticed. From his gilded throne, the king watched as her victories stacked up. Her legend expanding beyond the Colosseum walls. This is dangerous, one of his advisors murmured. She is more than a fighter now. She is a symbol. The king's fingers tightened around his goblet. Lucius, standing in the shadows, merely smirked. Perhaps you should have killed her when you had the chance. The king's jaw clenched. She was entertainment, a spectacle. She was, Lucius corrected. Now she's something else entirely. A threat, a storm brewing on the horizon. The king drained his goblet and slammed it onto the table. Then let's remind her who holds the chains. The bloodied sand. The day of the grand tournament arrived. The Colosseum, packed beyond its limits, roared with excitement. The air buzzed with something electric, something different. Electra stood in the center of the arena, her sword gripped tightly. Across from her, a line of warriors, each hand-picked by the king. The best, the deadliest, men who had spent years perfecting the art of killing. The message was clear. This was an execution. The horn blew. They charged. Electra moved like lightning, her blade dancing through the air, striking, blocking, countering. Blood painted the sand beneath her feet, but she did not falter. One by one they fell. The crowd was no longer just watching. They were screaming, "Beast of Leon! Beast of Leon!" The king, watching from his balcony, felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. This was no longer his show. This was hers. Then as the last body hit the sand, Electra turned her gaze upward. Her eyes met the king's. And slowly, deliberately, she raised her fist into the air, a symbol of defiance. A declaration of war. The Colosseum erupted. The rebellion was no longer just whispers in the dark. It was in the open now, in the people, in the hearts of those who had once cheered for the Empire, but now roared for something else, for freedom. For her, the king stood, his face a mask of barely contained rage. Lucius chuckled under his breath. Well, there, now you've really done it. The beginning of the end. That night, as the city trembled with the echoes of the Colosseum's roar, Electra and her allies gathered. It's time, Cassius said, his voice laced with determination. Electra nodded. The people are with us. The gods are afraid. And the king? She smirked. The king is desperate. Lyra adjusted the straps of her armor. Desperate men make mistakes. Electra tightened the grip on her sword. Then let's make him regret every single one. The rebellion had begun, but the question remained, who would survive it? Would Electra's uprising succeed, or had she underestimated the king's power? Was Lucius truly an ally, or was he playing a far more dangerous game? And in the end, would the city of Rome be her battleground, or her grave? Watch out for the answer to these questions in the next episode. Thank you for watching.